RAF stations are proud pillars of British history. But beneath the surface lie darker secrets. We reveal 10 haunted UK airfields, where restless spirits still linger in the shadows. 1. RAF Wittering. There's something strange about RAF Wittering, not just its eerie silence after dark, or the way fog clings to the runways like it's hiding something. It's what happens when the sun goes down, what people hear and see. Security guards on the night shift often report the same thing. Footsteps, heavy, deliberate, military boots echoing through empty hangars. Always behind them, never in sight. One man said he heard those footsteps following him down the main corridor. Slow at first, then quicker, matching his own pace. When he turned to confront whoever was behind him, there was nothing. Only the sound of a door creaking slowly shut, with no wind and no one. And then there's the figure on the runway. Described by multiple witnesses over the years, he always appears the same. A man in an old RAF pilot's uniform, standing alone near the edge of the airfield, his gaze fixed toward the sky, as if waiting for a command that never comes. When approached, he simply disappears. Not walks away, not fades. Gone, into the mist, like he was never really there. But the most chilling part isn't what people see. It's what they feel. Many who've stayed overnight at RAF Wittering talk about a weight in the air, the sudden drop in temperature, the sensation that someone is standing just behind you, so close you can hear them breathe. But when you turn around, you're alone. And then the radio starts crackling. It's happened more than once. Radios in locked rooms suddenly spring to life, with static followed by a voice, faint, distorted, sometimes calling names no one recognizes, sometimes whispering things no one can understand. One technician reported hearing his name clearly spoken over a dead frequency. When he rewound the recording, it was gone, nothing but white noise. Rumors say it's the spirit of a pilot who crashed during a night exercise and was never recovered. Others believe it's more than one presence, an echo of every soul that passed through this base, bound to it by duty or by death. You might visit RAF Wittering in the daytime and feel nothing, just history, just old concrete and stories. But if you find yourself there alone, past midnight, and you hear footsteps behind you, don't stop, don't look back, because he's still waiting. And maybe, just maybe, he wants you to finish his flight. 2. RAF Hornchurch. There's something about RAF Hornchurch that unsettles even the most skeptical visitors. The base was decommissioned long ago, the building's now crumbling and silent. But the silence doesn't last, not at night. Locals who live nearby say that sometimes, usually just past 2 a.m., they hear the sound of aircraft engines, low, distant, circling above the empty skies, as if a forgotten squadron is still trying to return home. But the airspace is closed, there are no planes. One night, a group of amateur urban explorers entered the abandoned barracks. They were laughing, recording footage, making jokes, until they entered the main hallway. That's when one of them stopped and stared. A man, just standing at the far end of the corridor, motionless, wearing what looked like a tattered RAF uniform. His face was pale, expressionless. His boots were soaking wet, leaving a trail behind him, except the floor was bone dry. The man raised a hand slowly, pointing toward the exit. No words, just that one gesture, and then he vanished, mid-movement, as if he was never there at all. The group ran, of course, but one of them, still shaken the next morning, admitted something chilling. When they got home and watched the footage, there was nothing in the hallway, no figure, no footsteps, just the sound of their own breath, and faintly, the tap-tap of boots on concrete. Even stranger, some say the old officers' mess is haunted by more than just one spirit. Cleaners and caretakers report doors slamming shut with no wind, radios turning on by themselves, and cold spots that move through rooms, like someone passing by. One former caretaker said that every time he turned off the lights in the mess hall, he'd return the next day to find them all back on, and one chair pulled out at the long table. Always the same chair. There's also talk of a portrait, an oil painting of a decorated pilot once hung above the fireplace. They say, before it was removed, the pilot's eyes seem to follow you around the room. One guest swore she saw the expression change, a faint smile turning into a scowl as she passed. Some believe the ghosts of RAF Hornchurch are restless because they were never given peace. Others think the base has simply absorbed too much of the past, too much fear, too much death to ever be quiet again. So if you find yourself near Hornchurch and you hear footsteps behind you in an empty hallway or the engines of a Spitfire overhead on a windless night, don't assume you're alone. Because somewhere in the shadows of those old walls, someone is still on duty. 3. RAF Bassingbourn. They say RAF Bassingbourn doesn't sleep at night. Even though the aircraft are long gone, something still moves through its empty corridors. The base itself is partially abandoned now, broken windows, rusted hinges. But ask any security staff working the night shift and you'll get the same reaction. A pause, a glance over their shoulder, and then, we don't talk about the main hallway, because something walks there. Not every night, but often enough that no one dares to walk it alone after midnight. One guard, new on the job, decided the stories were nonsense. He offered to do a solo round through the main block at 2 a.m. He didn't make it halfway before he came running back, pale and speechless. Later, he managed to explain. He had heard crying, a woman's voice, soft, broken, coming from the far end of the hallway. As he stepped closer, the sound grew clearer. It wasn't just crying, she was calling a name, over and over through the dark. When he turned the corner, he saw her. A woman in what looked like an old nurse's uniform, her face hidden beneath dark hair, blood down the front of her blouse. She looked up. Her eyes were hollow, and then she took a step toward him, without moving her feet, as though the air itself dragged her forward. He turned and ran. He never came back. Others have seen her too, always in the same place, the long corridor behind the former medical wing. Some say she was a wartime nurse who lost her fiancé in a crash near the base. That she never got the message, that she still waits searching the halls every night, calling his name, unaware he's gone. More disturbingly, some have claimed to hear knocking from inside locked rooms, especially room 11. One janitor said he unlocked it one night, just to be sure, and found nothing inside. But when he turned to leave, he heard breathing, heavy, slow, right behind him. There was no one there. You can visit RAF Bassingbourn. Parts of it have been repurposed, but the old hallway still stands, untouched. And those who pass through it quickly often do so with their heads down and a prayer in mind. Because sometimes, in the stillness, you can hear a woman's voice, echoing softly from the dark, calling, always calling, for someone who will never come home. 4. RAF Thurley. There's something wrong with the control tower at RAF Thurley. Even now, long after it was decommissioned, the tower still stands. Tall, cold, watching. Locals say the windows are always dark, except sometimes, late at night, a light flickers on, just for a moment, then disappears. The base itself is quiet, but the tower is never truly silent. A former caretaker once described hearing radio static, soft at first, then rising, coming from the top floor. But the equipment had been removed years ago. There were no power lines connected, no reason for anything to be transmitting. He climbed the stairs slowly as the static grew louder, and then a voice, not speaking, breathing. Long, strained breaths, like someone waiting, dying, trapped. He reached the control room. It was empty as expected, but the headset on the old desk, disconnected, was swinging gently, as if just released. He left and never came back. There are stories that go further, that on some nights, a man can be seen standing in the window of the control tower, hands behind his back as if still scanning the skies. One truck driver, delivering supplies late, claimed he saw a figure up there. Thinking it was security, he waved. The figure waved back. But when he asked the staff inside, they said, "There's no one in the tower. Hasn't been for years." They checked. It was empty. The doors were still padlocked from the outside. But perhaps the most terrifying encounter came from a group of amateur paranormal investigators. They set up a mic near the tower, hoping to catch EVP. What they captured was chilling. Amid the hiss and crackle, a voice whispered through, "Final approach, permission granted," followed by nothing. Just static, then silence. Experts reviewed the recording. There was no radio in the area broadcasting, no towers nearby, and the voice was dated. Clear British military inflection. 1940s. Some say it's the ghost of a controller who refused to abandon his post, that he died waiting for a pilot to return, and now he still listens, still scans the sky, still grants landings to planes that never arrive. So if you pass by RAF Thurley late at night and you see a light flicker in the control tower window, don't wave. Don't look too long, because he's watching. And if you make eye contact, he might start speaking to you next. 5. RAF Colby Graange. RAF Colby Graange was never a large station. Tucked away in the quiet Lincolnshire countryside, it's easy to forget it ever existed. But those who live nearby say the base doesn't let itself be forgotten, especially at night. One of the most persistent legends surrounding Colby Graange is the Phantom Jeep. It starts the same way every time. A quiet road, no wind, no sound. Then, suddenly, you hear it. The low, steady rumble of an engine, the crunch of gravel, headlights in the distance, even though the road ahead is completely empty. Witnesses say the vehicle moves fast, too fast. It speeds around the bend, headlights blinding, but when it gets close, there's no driver, just an empty Jeep coated in dust, moving as if guided by invisible hands. And then, as quickly as it appears, it vanishes. No tire marks, no sound, gone. Security personnel have tried to chase it. Some followed it all the way to the old hangars, only to find locked gates and silence. But that's not the only haunting. Inside the decaying structures, workers have reported strange occurrences for years. One man, doing electrical work, said he saw a shadow pass across the open hangar door. He called out, thinking it was a colleague. No reply. He stepped outside, and there, at the far end of the runway, was a figure in full RAF uniform standing still. The man waved. The figure turned, started walking toward him, step by step. But something was wrong. The footsteps made no sound. and just as it came into focus, it vanished. Mid-stride, the worker dropped his tools and left the site. He never returned. Some believe RAF Colby Graange is haunted by the ghosts of airmen who died not in battle, but in training accidents, mechanical failures, and lonely night patrols. Deaths that were quiet, forgotten. Now, the Jeep still drives its rounds. The airman still walks the line, doing his duty night after night for no one. So if you ever find yourself near the old airfield and you hear an engine in the dark, don't step into the road. Don't flash your lights. Because once the Phantom Jeep sees you, it doesn't stop. 6. RAF Lichfield. There are places where the past fades gently, and there are places like RAF Lichfield where the past refuses to die. The base itself is mostly derelict, buildings overgrown, concrete cracking beneath moss. But deep inside, in the old barracks and training halls, something still lingers. Not echoes, not memories, something alive, in its own way. They called him the Burned Man. The first report came from a team surveying the site in the late 90s. One of them, an experienced contractor, entered the old debriefing hall alone. 10 minutes later, he ran out, visibly shaking. He said he saw a man standing in the far corner, face blistered and melted, parts of his uniform fused to charred skin, his eyes still open, still aware. The man didn't move, didn't speak, just stared. When the contractor turned to flee, he heard it, dragging footsteps behind him. Slow, wet. But when he looked back, no one. Over the years, others have seen him, always in places tied to flame, the boiler room, the maintenance sheds, the old munitions dump. Some say he was a pilot who survived a crash landing at the base, but died days later, in agony, after fire consumed much of his body. Others believe he never made it out of the wreckage at all, and that what people see now is his soul, still trying to escape the flames. One terrifying account came from a group filming a paranormal documentary. They set up a thermal camera inside the northern hangar. Nothing at first. Then, just before 3 a.m., the screen showed a figure made entirely of heat, standing alone in a cold room. The silhouette moved toward the camera, and then the equipment shut off, completely fried. Never worked again. There's a darker theory. That the Burned Man doesn't just appear, he attaches himself to people. A researcher said that after visiting Lichfield, he kept smelling smoke in his flat. His mirrors fogged over, his bedroom door would creak open slowly at 3:17 a.m., the exact time the fire was believed to have started. One night, he woke up choking, and in the mirror across the room, he saw a blackened figure standing at the foot of his bed. So if you ever explore RAF Lichfield, be careful where you step. Watch your reflections. Pay attention to the smell in the air. Because if you scent burnt metal and smoke and the room suddenly goes still, he's already there. And once he's seen you, he doesn't always stay behind. 7. RAF Newton. RAF Newton is known for its peaceful countryside surroundings, but beneath the calm lies a haunting secret, one that even locals speak of in hushed tones. Visitors and workers have long reported seeing a mysterious aircraft silhouette soaring silently above the old runway, yet no plane is ever recorded on radar. But the strangest sightings involve the pilot. One security guard recounted a night patrol where he saw a faint figure standing by a ruined hangar. Dressed in a pilot's uniform from the 1940s, the man's face was always obscured, like a shadow or mist. When the guard tried to approach, the figure simply turned toward the sky, and raised a hand in a silent salute. Then, without warning, he vanished into thin air. Others have heard the soft hum of a plane's engine overhead, but no noise from the runway or the airfield below. On some nights, this sound grows louder, as if a plane is preparing to land, only to fade suddenly. Locals say it's the ghost of a pilot who vanished during a training exercise, never found, never heard from again. Several times, workers have found personal items, gloves, a leather flight cap, sometimes an old map, left on the runway with no explanation. And every time someone picks up these items, they feel an overwhelming coldness, followed by the faint scent of aviation fuel and ozone. One former pilot who worked on the base admitted to seeing the figure during foggy dawns. It felt like he was waiting, watching, like the past refusing to let go. So, if you visit RAF Newton and hear that distant engine hum, or catch a glimpse of a solitary figure in pilot gear, remember, you're not alone. And some flights never truly end. 8. RAF Digby. RAF Digby, with its long history, holds secrets that refuse to stay buried. Visitors often speak of shadows moving at the edge of their vision, figures that vanish the moment you look directly at them. But it's the whispers that chill the blood. Night workers at the base have reported hearing soft voices, barely audible, carrying urgent messages in old RAF slang. The voices come from empty rooms, long since sealed off. Some swear they heard their own names whispered, calling them into the darkness. One electrician recalled fixing lights in the old operations block when the whispers started. At first, they were indecipherable, murmurs drifting through the walls. Then the voices became clearer. Get down, incoming, danger. He froze, the hairs on his neck standing up. Turning quickly, he saw a fleeting glimpse of figures dressed in World War II uniforms, moving swiftly down the hallway. But when he called out, the figures vanished. No one answered. Another story tells of a group of air cadets training at RAF Digby who dared to explore the sealed basement. They claimed the whispers followed them, growing louder and more desperate. One cadet dropped his torch and fled, terrified. Not long after, an old Morse receiver, stored away in the base's museum, suddenly crackled to life one stormy evening. A single line of code played through the static. Help. Trapped. Squadron 3. And then, silence. The museum staff dismissed it as electrical interference, until someone checked the old logbooks. Squadron 3 had vanished in 1943, and that exact message was recorded in a final, incomplete transmission 80 years earlier. It said that those who listen too closely sometimes lose themselves in the echoes, becoming part of the shadows. So if you ever hear whispers while passing through RAF Digby, don't turn back to look, because some voices don't want to be heard. They want to pull you in. And sometimes they do. A name disappears from a logbook. A bed in the barracks remains untouched, and no one ever speaks of it again. 9. RAF Harobia. RAF Harobia sits quietly in the Devon countryside now, but decades ago it was alive with the roar of engines and the tension of wartime flights. Yet, beneath that history lies a chilling secret. During the war, a young pilot took off from Harobia on a routine night patrol. He never returned. No wreckage was ever found. No explanation. Just silence. But the story didn't end there. Locals began reporting a mysterious aircraft flying overhead on stormy nights, its engine a ghostly howl cutting through the wind. Sometimes they'd see a faint light moving erratically in the sky, like a plane searching for its way home. Witnesses described a figure in the cockpit, a silhouette of a pilot waving silently, but no plane was ever detected on radar, and when they looked up, the plane would disappear like a mist. One evening, a rescue team revisiting the area for old wreckage claimed their radios began picking up faint transmissions. A voice crackled through. "Mayday. Lost. Can't find. Home base." But when they tried to locate the source, there was nothing. It's believed the pilot is trapped in a never-ending flight, forever circling above Harobia, unable to land or find peace. Visitors to the airfield sometimes report hearing distant engine noise or catching a glimpse of flickering lights in the sky, signs that the lost flight continues. So, next time you're near RAF Harobia on a stormy night, look up. If you see a light weaving through the clouds, it might just be a pilot still searching for home. 10. RAF Ceston. RAF Ceston, deep in Nottinghamshire, was once a bustling RAF base. Today, it stands quiet, but locals still speak of strange occurrences that refuse to fade away. During World War II, a squadron of bombers took off on a mission from Ceston. They never returned. Radio contact was lost mid-flight, then nothing. But decades later, people began reporting strange sightings in the skies above the old airfield. At dusk, witnesses often see a formation of planes flying silently, their engines inaudible, their shapes barely visible in the fading light. Some have claimed to see pilots standing in the cockpits, staring down at the fields below, but as they approach to get a better look, the planes simply vanish without a trace. One farmer remembers driving home late one evening when he noticed the Phantom squadron overhead. He stopped to watch in awe as the planes flew in perfect formation. Suddenly, a chilling silence fell, and the entire squadron disappeared into thin air, leaving behind only an eerie calm. Locals whisper of a curse, that the squadron is doomed to fly forever, unable to land, trapped between worlds. Even the old control tower at RAF Ceston is said to be haunted by the voices of lost airmen, calling out for their comrades who never returned. So, if you're near RAF Ceston as twilight falls and the sky begins to darken, look up. You might just witness the vanishing squadron, forever patrolling the skies, forever lost in time. If you enjoyed these spooky tales, please like and subscribe to Creepy Experience. Know someone who loves the paranormal? Share this video with them. Got a strange story? Tell us in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.